Mrs. Kunbi started her first degree in economics at OAU University, and she also went on to obtain an MBA with distinction from University of Liverpool, where she also holds a certification in early years music and movement from Canterbury Christ Church University. There's so much to say about her, but she fell in love with teaching music and has pursued it ever since. And this was over 20 years ago. So without further ado, we're going to welcome Mrs. Kunbi to the stage. Welcome, ma'am. We are so excited to have you. Like I said earlier, if you do have questions, please leave them in the comments. Please leave them in the comments. After her section, she will take up all your questions. Thank you so much. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you for being here with us. Can you hear us, please? Okay.
Right.
We're
thank
trying
you.
to unmute you.
Yeah, thank you. I was waiting for the, I couldn't unmute myself, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This is my first Homeschooling Conversations event, and I'm thrilled to bits to be here speaking with all of you. The homeschooling community is dear to my heart, and that's because when I was raising my children, my oldest is 25 now, I wanted to homeschool. That was my instinct, was to homeschool. But at the time, I didn't know anybody else who was doing it. I had no pathway. I just, I couldn't, for the life of me, think of how I was going to make it work. And so I did the next best thing, which was to become self-employed, because I wanted the flexibility to be able to pick up my child from school and at least spend some quality time with my children after school. And so the fact that, this whole community has evolved and is now a vibrant, movement across the globe is just amazing. It's thrilling, absolutely thrilling to me. It's giving women opportunities that did not exist in the past. And I really want you all to succeed on your journeys. And I'm hoping that what I share today is going to give you a little bit of an insight as to how you can support your children musically. There's something, a saying that I have. Am I able to share my screen? I'm not able to share my screen. Is that okay? Thank you. Okay.
Okay, you should try now.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen, when you can see my screen.
Yes, we can now.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so there's this saying that I love, which is you can outsource childcare, but it is not possible to outsource parenting. And I think I'm speaking to the converted right now because I think you all understand the difference. Yes, you can have somebody come to your house, wipe your child's bum, feed them, all of that stuff. But parenting and raising your child, instilling the values in them, making sure that they grow up to be, strong people of character, that cannot be outsourced. That is really down to us. And so I'm going to start off this presentation by talking about the importance and the benefits of including a well-structured and well-thought-out music learning program in your child's as part of your educating your child, and ways in which you can do that and be successful in doing that. I love research. I love knowing all about the latest developments in my field. I'm part of a group of educators called the Bigger Better Brains Network, based out of Australia, and we are always learning about the latest research into music learning and the benefits that it brings. And there are three areas. There's so many benefits, but there are three key headlines that we're going to look at today. How music learning helps the neural development in a child, how it helps social behaviors, and we're also going to look at how it helps with attention and memory. So I'm just going to go back to the previous slide and look at some of these in detail. Sorry, my screen is misbehaving today. I'm struggling to navigate. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. So let's look at music learning and neural development. And we're not going to be able to go through all of these in depth, but these are the headlines. Learning, and when we say music learning, it has to be a properly structured music learning program, not just any sort of random stuff. There are certain key ingredients that need to be in place, but assuming all those things are in place, music learning helps to develop processing speed. And what does that mean? We all have heard about left brain, right brain. And processing speed is the speed with which your brain exchanges information between the two hemispheres. The middle part of our brain is called the cerebellum. Okay, and the reality is that if you look at this picture of the cerebellum here, this gap between your left and your right brain is 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 full of nerves. Okay, there's all kinds of neurons that are speaking and firing, sending messages from one side of the brain to the other. Research has found that musicians have significantly better developed cerebellums than any other population, including artists, including sports people. And that is because the nature of learning to play an instrument, where it also involves reading music as well as performing your instrument and using both sides of your left side, your left and your right hand. Think of the drums, and you're all over the place. You're using everything, your feet as well. It actually means that your brain is working a lot harder, and you're consistent in that. And they find this difference in people who are able to continue music learning for a period of at least 5 years, 5 to 7 years. They find that that cerebellum has been exercised so much that it is stronger. There are more connections between the left side of the brain and the right side, and therefore it is quicker to process information. And this is generic now. The benefits cut across not just music, because people with a better developed cerebellum are also going to be able to process maths quicker, science quicker, logic. And so the benefits of learning music on the brain transfers to other parts of life as well. Another thing that music learning helps is in terms of cognitive control, okay, especially inhibitory control. And I'm going to go through this in a bit more detail because there's a very interesting research that was done not too long ago that studied 3 different groups of learners, okay, of children. They worked with children who were about to start music with an orchestra. This was based in America. And they look at children who are about to start a sports program, and then children who were not doing either of the two. And what they did was that they were looking at how those children are able to respond to controlling their impulses. So they were given 3 options with regards to like a reward or something that they desired. Let's say some sweeties, and they said, okay, you can have this number of sweeties now, or if you wait, a little longer, you can have this number of sweeties, which was more, or if you wait even longer, you can have the biggest amount of sweeties. Okay. They not only did that, they also had other things that they did with them as well. Like they looked at scans of their brains and all sorts of things. And what they found was that the children who were taking part in the music learning programs developed the strongest inhibitory skills faster than any other group, including the sports group. And this is just because of the way music learning is and the demands that it makes on you. The fact that you're having to spend time to learn to play a piece to a high standard. Before when you first start learning to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and you're pressing the keys, it doesn't sound anything like it. And you have to be persistent and go over it over and over again. And in time, you learn that, okay, over time, I can get to what I want. You kind of learn, to build in stamina. And so I found that to be really, really interesting. They find that learning to play an instrument, like we talked about already, results in structural and functional changes in the brain. It helps the brain to be more efficient in processing data and languages, especially languages. It helps with auditory fitness and processing, sensory integration. You're doing one thing with one hand, one thing with another hand. Your eyes are doing something else. There are three core senses that music engages simultaneously. And when you do an MRI scan of the brain of somebody in the process of, playing a musical instrument, they find that those three areas are working at the same time in a way that it doesn't happen with other sports. So your auditory senses are working, your visual senses are working, and your motor senses are working. And all three are working at the same time, and they're having to communicate to one another. And so that integrates your senses. And that is, it's no surprise that when somebody is involved in an accident that causes some form of brain damage, part of the therapy to helping them recover includes music therapy. And it has to, because music therapy forces the brain to work, those different parts of the brain, to find ways of working together again. And what they find is that when music therapies, begin to do their work and people start to regain their speech and they start to regain their movement, they find that what the brain has done is that it has bypassed the bits that were damaged and created new pathways. It's found ways to reconnect those parts of the brain that had been disconnected. And music learning contributes significantly to those sorts of things. The other thing that music learning does is that it protects your brain later in life. And so it is a defense against things, degenerative brain disease like dementia. Learning a musical instrument, they found that people who learn, not that they don't ever get brain disease, but they get it later in life. And if they do get it, it's not as severe as people who haven't learned to play a musical instrument. And so there's a whole heap of benefits that come just from this area alone. And if that is not enough, look at how music learning benefits on a social level. People who learn to play music, especially with other musicians, they find that they tend to be more inclined to demonstrate helping behaviors because you understand quickly that you are part of a unit, you're part of a team, and that this thing is only going to sound right if everybody's doing the right, if everybody's working together, pulling together. So that sense of teamwork develops, is strong in people who learn to play a musical instrument, especially with other people. Then you talk about sharing behaviors. You talk about empathy. You look at well-being, psychological well-being. The number of times that just being able to play an instrument, or even those of us that don't, those that don't play, yourself that sometimes you just need to listen to music to play your head. You understand me? So music really helps with psychological well-being. It shows that that they found that music learning with migrant children who are learning to sing songs and the musical traditions of the cultures that they migrate into, it helps them assimilate quicker. And then they find that because of the way that music learning works with your hormones and triggers happy hormones and things like that, it actually improves immune health. It helps to build your immunity. It is a defense against depression. So there are so many benefits on the social side as well to learning to play a musical instrument. That is beyond the narrow thing that people think about is that, if my child learns to play an instrument, they can play in church, or they can, maybe they can blow, maybe they are going to be the next Davido. They may not. But does that mean that they haven't got any benefit? No. Okay? It doesn't mean that at all. And you shouldn't have that narrow, definition of music learning is only for people who are not academic. Who told you that? That is such a fallacy. Such a fallacy. And it really is untrue. And then the last thing is about music learning helping with attention and memory. And it's amazing how when you're forced to focus for such extended periods of time on reading music off a sheet, on playing a tune, playing a tune over and over and over again until it sounds really well, it forces you to learn how to concentrate. Okay, unlike when you are on video games and everything is so instantaneous and you have instant gratification all the time. that is actually unhealthy. So learning to play a musical instrument forces you to learn to persevere. Okay, it trains you. It kind of trains your mindset. It trains your attention. Um, that okay, it gives you stamina. Because you have to persist over and over and over again, and play that passage 1,000 times until it sounds right. And that really helps people, and children especially, learn how to zone in and how to filter out everything else that's happening around them. As children develop, and if on children on a well-structured music learning program, they kind of develop these amazing, amazing, amazing memory, attention, filtering skills that then serves them well in the classroom. Okay, so your child goes to class and people are being crazy around them, and they're busy trying to finish the task that the teacher has given them. They can shut everything off, to a better degree than those who haven't had that kind of training. So there's a whole heap, and obviously there's the IQ side of things as well. They do find that on average, IQ scores improve over time by 7 points, okay, in children who are following a well-structured music learning program. So these are just 3 headlines, okay, that I'm dropping for you today. And obviously under each headline, there's at least 6 or 7 benefits to music learning that, that your child can get. So you are now like, but I'm not a musician. It doesn't matter. And you'll be interested to know that not every, a lot of the successful musicians that we know, famous musicians that we know, their parents are not musicians either. What you need is knowledge. Okay. And I don't know whether you've heard of the story of the Polgar sisters. They are chess champions. And their story is fascinating, but it just proves the point that you just need the right kind of motivation and right kind of information behind you, and your children can be anything. All right. I can't go into the detail of the Polgar sisters now because I know we haven't got time. But look into that story and how a non-chess player decided that I'm going to raise chess masters, and he did. He made that decision before he got married. He put an advert in the newspaper to say that I believe that talent is nurtured, not talent comes through nurture, not nature. And I would like, somebody to marry me to prove this. And he put an advert in the paper, and this woman responded. They have 3 children, trained them in chess. None of them, neither husband nor wife, were chess players at the time. They learned about chess. They trained these children in chess, and they're world champions today. One of them has beaten Kasparov. Those of you who follow chess will know that Kasparov is like the main chess guru. I think she was 14 when she beat him. Look them up. The Polgar sisters, they're on YouTube. They're still alive today. They're on YouTube. They will tell you all about their upbringing. So you just need having the right knowledge is all you need. All right, so let's break it down. What do you need for babies? Okay, so when your child is 0 to 3, and I say 0 because actually, if you're going to intentionally raise a musical child, all right, you start even before your baby is born. Why? By the time you're 5 weeks pregnant, your baby 5 months pregnant, sorry, your baby can't hear you. Okay, so your communication, your musical engagement with your child starts in vitro. I learned this after I had my first child, before I had my second. I was always singing, and I actually would go to bed, and I don't know whether they would recommend it, these days, and I'm not sure that it is as effective, but I used to go to bed with a earphones on my bump, playing music to my bump, okay, because I knew my baby could hear me. Now, actually, your baby can hear your voice probably better than external sounds because your voice is resonating through your bones inside you into your womb. And that's why when the baby is born, they are soothed by mommy's voice. And so you start training your preborn child, your newborn child, by singing. Okay, your baby loves to hear your voice. And they really don't know whether you're singing in tune or not. All they know is that this is a familiar voice that I love, that I've grown to love because I recognize it. Okay, and so sing with your baby. Get very simple percussion instruments because your baby's first instinct is to bang things together. Okay, so get age appropriate, child-sized musical instruments, get the maracas, make a maracas, get an empty bottle, put it with rice, tape it down with sellotape so that it doesn't spill everywhere and they start putting it in their ears and in their noses. Make it secure and give it to them. And associate singing with shaking an instrument rhythmically. Okay, because the foundation of music is rhythm. And so it's important that when you're doing these musical activities with your children, you are thinking about, okay, I'm going to be, we're going to clap along to this song. Okay, your first instrument is your hands. We're going to clap along to this song. Can your baby clap? No, but you can. You're going to clap in time. You're going to sing. You're going to clap in time. And your baby is going to, over time, start to copy you. But even before they start to copy you, guess what? They already know how that song is supposed to sound. So that when they now attend to themselves, they know what it is they're aiming for. And they know that, okay, I haven't got there yet, but one day I'm going to be able to sing this song like mom. You understand what I'm trying to say? So for under threes, handheld percussion, do not even begin to, the number of times people come to me and say, can my 2-year-old start learning the piano? No, because your 2-year-old's hands are not even fully developed yet. They do not have the motor skills. Their tendons haven't fully developed. They cannot play the piano. I don't care what you are seeing on YouTube, okay? The child on YouTube is not your child. Focus on your focus. Look at your child. Does my child have the pincer grip? Can my child, hold a ball or whatever it is, if your child can't do this, don't then ask your piano teacher to teach your child to play piano. Because your child is not physically able to do it. Focus on where their strengths are. Okay? Their impulse is to hit things. Their impulse is to bang things. So give them percussion instruments and begin to work with them on rhythm, on playing those things rhythmically. By singing, they're working on their voices, explore different ranges, sing some songs that go, that go through the registers, that, have low bits, high bits, all of those things. As they get sensitive to it, by the time you now put them in front of a musical instrument, they're already primed. Their senses are primed. Okay, they already have an innate sense of what good music should feel and sound like. They already know what it is they're aiming for. And so it's important that you make sure that your house is full of music. Your voice is the most important part. Okay, don't waste money on all sorts of things. Anyway, I can talk. This is my pet subject. Okay, because early years is where my music teaching career started, and so I think somebody. Okay, yeah. So that's what you would do with 0 to 3s, and then when they're between 3 and 5, guess what? You're still singing because your voice is never going to disappear. Your voice is your first instrument, so you keep developing that, because the more you sing and the bigger range of songs that you learn, the bigger your oral memory, the bigger your auditory skills, the bigger your ability to discriminate between sounds. So you keep singing. And then you can begin to start a child on an age-appropriate instrument. Don't give a 3-year-old a saxophone. They need adult teeth, okay? They need, they're not even big enough to carry the thing. The thing is probably heavier than they are. All right. You put a recorder. I'm so sorry. A lot of people would say, oh, but my child is learning recorder, at school at this age. They cannot, the fingers cannot even, bend to cover those holes properly. And so guess what? It sounds horrendous. So find age-appropriate instruments for children. I always start all my 3.5, 3 to 5-year-olds. I will start them in my music school. We start them on the piano, because the piano is an upgraded version of a percussion instrument. It is still a percussion instrument. Pianos, acoustic pianos, real pianos in quotes, okay, are just a series of hammers banging a string. That is what they are. Okay, so a piano is a percussion instrument. It's something that they can bang. It doesn't require, as much finesse in terms of fine motor skills as some of the other instruments out there. But you have other, there are many, as with everything, music is technology is advancing even in the music education sphere, and so there are now other instruments that you can safely introduce to children in this age group. For example, there's a something called a J sax. A junior saxophone is made of lightweight plastic. in terms of how you blow it, you're using the same shape of mouth that you would use for a proper saxophone. And so you can begin to introduce those kind of instruments to children at this age. But think about, your child's abilities and what is appropriate to them. They can start to learn simple notation. Okay, so symbols. This is usually graphic notation. You haven't started, for those of you who might know about, reading Western sheet music, you have the lines and the spaces. You don't begin there. You would start with just the notes, the shapes of the notes. Okay, this is what, this symbol means, this symbol means play for this length of time. This symbol means play for 4 beats. This symbol means plays for 1 beat. That kind of thing. Let them begin to understand the association between symbols and sounds, but you keep it appropriate to their level. Movement is 100% important, as with your babies, okay? Because they have to feel the rhythm in their bodies. And the more rhythm they express through their bodies, the more they can express on the instrument. And as with all music learning, it has to be structured. There has to be a purpose to it. You cannot be going round and round in circles and expect miracles. It has to be leading somewhere. It has to be precept upon precept, line upon line. The same way, if you think about your reading, when your children are introduced to reading in school, they start with learning their alphabet, and then they're reading 3-letter words, and they move up to 5-letter words, that they begin to string simple sentences together. There's a lot of repetition, and they move up the reading tree. Music is exactly the same. When you're learning music, you are learning a language, and so it needs to follow a sequence. Okay, it needs to be properly structured, leading from one thing to the other. And again, with this age group, it's important that it's social. It's important that other children engage. It's a fun activity. They don't think of it as learning. They don't think of it as hard work. They just think that, oh, I'm coming to do this cool thing with my friends. That is so important. And you won't believe for how long that factor, that social element is important to music learning. So let's move on. Now we move on to the 5 to 7-year-olds, and then you're beginning to introduce more complex instruments, appropriate, that they now have physically developed to be able to handle. Okay, so you've got half-size guitars. You can begin to introduce that to them. Ukuleles. I start using ukuleles with my 3-year-olds, but my expectation of a 3-year-old on a ukulele is nowhere the same as my expectation of a 5-year-old on a ukulele. Okay, and obviously they can now begin to start to decipher sheet music. Okay, music written down on the 5 lines and spaces. Yes, it was developed or popularized by Western music. There's other types of notation, by the way. Other cultures have their own type of notation. We don't have, so we will use what is out there already and what is working. Okay. Now, the fact that it's sheet music doesn't mean that they are only learning classical music. They can learn our own indigenous folk songs that have been notated on a score. All sheet music is a way of communicating to another person that this is what this is supposed to sound like. It is your writing skills. Okay, so when you're learning English, you don't only learn to speak, you also learn to write. That's why it's called read and write. The same thing with music. Okay, if you only learn to play and you never learn to read, then you're an illiterate musically. In that, when we say somebody's an illiterate, they can speak now. They can make themselves understood. They can even speak, big grammar. But if you ask them to write it down, they won't be able to write it. So the same way with music, a well-rounded music education, and the one that's going to give your child the most benefits, has to include an element of reading. It has to include reading music. And again, it has to be structured and it has to be social. And the social bit is important because you'll find that when children are learning in a group alongside other children, they are naturally wanting to impress their peers. They are naturally, wanting to do as well as the next person. And so they kind of bounce off each other, and they would work more to impress their peers, and they will work for their teacher. And we have found that children who are in small group classes, okay, so not the ones where you have 20 children to one teacher and it's chaotic, no, but where you have children in small group classes, let's say between 4 to 6 children, okay, they progress faster than a child that is learning on their own, who thinks that the teacher is coming to suffocate them, and they feel that the teacher is asking them to do impossible things, and so they don't try. They get discouraged. They feel that, oh, I'm not good at this thing. When that same child is put in with a group of other children who are accessing the same material and making progress, then they get the confidence to try. You understand me? They are motivated to try, and they move faster. They move at the pace of their peers rather than, just them on their own thinking that this is too hard for me. So make sure, especially for the younger children, that music learning is social. It retains that social element. And also, music wasn't designed to be consumed by you alone. What's the fun in that, right? Music is meant to be a social activity. And so let's keep that element going. And then the next thing is, as they, progress, depending on this, so I'm looking at different ages of starting. It's never too late, by the way. And that's why I was going through different age groups. It's never too late to start learning an instrument. And even you as an adult, it is not too late. What you need is at least 2 years, preferably 5 years. And, for the best results, minimum of 7 years. Okay, of music learning, well-structured music learning to reap all those benefits that we're looking at. And obviously, if you're starting younger, your 7 years takes you to the end of primary school. You understand me? As opposed to, starting at age 8 and then you're battling, jam and, all the other things that begin to encroach on a child's time. So it's not that you cannot get the benefits at any time in life. It's just that your responsibilities and the time that you can commit realistically to learning music to a high standard is diminished as you get older. So the earlier you start, then the more likely it is that you're going to get the full benefits without any interruptions. Okay. But it doesn't mean that you cannot start at any time. Okay. People who are retired decide they want to learn guitar. There's nothing wrong with that, and they'll still get the benefits. But you do need to make sure that if your child is going to be learning a musical instrument, that you make time for it. Don't expect miracles without an investment of time. So 8 years old, again, a wider range of instruments are now open to the children. It's still sheet music, it's still structured, it's still social, but it's probably going to move at a faster pace than the 5-year-old beginner. So we are very careful not to mix age groups, only because generally an 8-year-old is going to comprehend and be able to move through material quicker than a 5-year-old. So when your children are learning music, make sure that they're in age and stage appropriate classes when they're learning. Okay. Sorry, I'm going backwards. Here we go. Alrighty. So what do we do? Okay, so we have targeted age appropriate music learning programs across all the ages. Okay. Boogie Babies is our flagship early years program for babies and toddlers. What is a baby? A baby is a baby that's come out of you from the minute your child is born. And like I said before your child is born, there's no reason why you cannot be engaging in music learning programs with them. Now, I want to caveat this by saying that there is a lot of fantastic resource freely available online. All sorts of, different channels, that you can go and your child can watch somebody singing and whatever. The key thing that is missing is the feedback, but also the interaction. Your child will benefit more from interacting with you. Remember, we talked about you can outsource childcare, you cannot outsource parenting, than if they're being babysat by somebody on a screen who cannot see them, who cannot engage with them, who cannot react to their responses, doesn't see their responses, doesn't know that response is correct or not, isn't able to encourage them to respond or try something, or move in a particular way, or get them to use their imagination, whatever. The interactivity is missing. And that interactivity is what helps your children cement what they're learning? Can they not learn from? Of course they do. My son was fed Teletubbies when he was little. That was what he was watching growing up, and he learned a lot from Teletubbies. And was able to mimic whatever their sayings were and the songs and everything else. But in terms of an effective, very specific music learning program that is tied to specific goals and that is leading to proficiency on a musical instrument, then an early years music program is not the same as your kid watching something on TV, just so that you know. And we always theme our early years music programs around general preschool themes. We look at sounds, numbers, animals, the world around us, all sorts of different themes that we follow on a cyclical basis. It's very possible for your child to come to us for do the music Boogie Babies program for 2 years and not come across the same theme. So that is what we do for early years, and it is a music and movement session to be enjoyed with an adult. It does include the handheld percussion instruments and all kinds of props, and it gets them to use their imagination, it gets them to contribute, it gets them to think in musical ways. And then you have your mini stars, that's 3 to 5 year olds. This is a general musicianship program. We rotate between different instruments, so keyboard, the ukulele, like I talked about before, and bucket drums to work on their rhythmic skills, and this starts to introduce the simple graphic notation, where they're learning to read symbols, where they're learning to create beats using those symbols, create their own music using symbols and sounds, and it's really consolidating that foundation. Boogie Babies and Mini Stars program is part of a Sound Foundations program for 0 to 5 year olds. So by the time that your child is finishing Sound Foundations, they are ready to move on to the next stage, which is all sorts of courses for beginners across different instruments. What we have done, which is going to be of a huge benefit to homeschoolers, is that thanks to COVID, and yes, COVID was a nightmare in so many ways, but some good did come out of it. And one of the good things that came out of it for us, and that benefits you, is that we were able to create a whole heap of courses on a learning management platform that, even though you are not yourself a musician, certainly the beginner level courses, the initial courses are things that you can go through with your child at home. Okay, so you can access those resources for whatever instrument you're interested in for your child. So we have courses for piano, for ukulele, for guitar, and we're working on a voice program as well, that you can, self-paced, do on your own. And the first unit, especially for the first unit of our beginner courses, we actually make available for free. So you can access that. You can try that at home with your kids. We've had very good reviews from parents who've done so. If you then want support with that, you can then choose what level of support you want. Whether you just want, the coach to give you feedback on assignments done, you can upload homework, upload videos of your kids, playing the instrument for feedback, or whether you want, ad hoc live lessons with a coach, or whether you want to join a group or whatever. There's so many different options that make it flexible to fit in with your schedule and also affordable. So you can pick whichever option works for you, and you can move between options depending on circumstances. So, for example, we have kids who start with us and then have to go off to boarding school, who continue to have access to the material online, so they can keep practicing in their own time, and then we catch up with them when they come home in the break. So, music learning doesn't have to be one way. There's lots of different ways to make it happen. So I hope I have given you an insight as to why you should take music lessons, as to how you can, what kinds of, how music learning should be structured for different ages of children. And this is how you can get hold of me. This is our website. You can check us out. You can reach us on WhatsApp on that number, and you can send us an email. For everybody who is interested, I'm quite happy to share links for how to access our free resources, self-paced resources. You can have a look, for your children, have a look, experience it, log in, watch the tutorials, whatever, and then begin your music learning journey that way. And then if you want more support, you can decide which kind of support that you would want for that. But do not give your children an opportunity to experience music learning, because there are people all over the world who do this as a matter of course. Okay, who do this as a matter of course, especially in Asia, in the West. I lived in the UK for nearly 20 years. And as part of the work that I did, I was invited by the government to run music lessons in childcare centers for under fives. The government was paying providers like myself to come in and run music lessons with 0 to 5-year-olds because they understood the difference it makes. Now, I share that because as the world gets smaller and smaller, your children are going to be standing in the same interview room or probably being interviewed on Zoom the same way as candidates from all over the world. And the people interviewing them are not, they can't be bothered whether they have 10,000 A stars. Okay? Some of these things are now like a given. When it comes to filtering through to the right candidate, then looking not just at academic qualifications, but also their creative skills, also other things that they have done to enrich themselves as an individual. And a lot of these employers, especially in the West, especially those who are, looking for your programmers and everything else, even, you won't believe it, even in the medical field, they will consider somebody who has a musical background higher over somebody who doesn't. And I'll give you one example. A friend's daughter applied to dental school at King's College London. And when she put on her form, everything that she's done, all her music, music exams that she's done and everything else. And when they saw that she had done a particular grade of piano exams, they exempted her from one of the tests that they do for intending dental surgeons, because they said that they knew that for her to have achieved that level of expertise or that level of proficiency in her piano, it means her hands are steady. It means she has good control of her hands. And so they just cancelled one of the tests that she needed to do for her dental exams. Please, don't let ignorance be what stands between you and your child's success in the future. I think I'll stop now. And I'll happy to take questions.
I almost want to tell you, do not stop. But because you have time constraints, I appreciate everything that you've shared with us today. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. I know everyone is giving you a round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We really appreciate it. My mind is like, oh my gosh, wow, amazing. You've not only validated some of the things that some of us do, I think you've also inspired and motivated more and do better. So thank you so much. Very detailed presentation, very informative. Like, I'm dealing with so much questions. So we're just going to try and take as many as we can, so we can get ready for the next speaker. So let me start with the first question that I have. Of your child's fingers affects when they start learning the piano? She's saying that her daughter loves the piano, but she sees that her fingers cannot reach some of the keys.
Yeah, don't stop her from banging on the piano. In fact, one of the best ways to get your child to take on music learning as a lifestyle, that's one of our challenges, especially in Africa, because our wahala is so much. For music to be part of a lifestyle, you have to be very intentional, and you just have to decide that some things you just have to, make your face hard. Now, for it to be a lifestyle, especially with regards to practice, and for it to be part of her nature, please insist that she sits and just bangs, okay? For 2-3 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, whatever it is. Because when she begins to learn to play melodies, she already has a habit of sitting on the piano every day. So it's not going to be strange to her. Part of the struggle we have with our children is that we all of a sudden overnight are demanding certain behaviors from them that we did not cultivate. You cannot reap where you have not sown.
Right.
You need to cultivate that it is normal. It is normal to play an instrument every day. When I said hands, is because people's expectations are shaped by what they're watching on YouTube. They see a 3-year-old playing playing for release, and they're like, where can my child play like that? Your child will not play like that. Okay. Unless you are prepared to pay the price that person has paid. What you don't know is to get a child to be able to play like that. They are typically playing 8 hours a day. You understand me? Typically. All right. So if you're not prepared to do that, then don't put that expectation on somebody else. It's impossible. And actually, what a lot of parents don't realize is that the most of your child's learning is happening outside of the lesson, not during the lesson. What can the teacher do in 1 hour? What we're doing is giving a roadmap to say, okay, this is how you're going to begin to learn this. And then it's the work that they do in between. That's where the growth happens. The growth happens in your house. It doesn't happen in the lesson. Okay? So please,
Right.
if your child wants to bang on the instrument, please let them do it as often as they like, but tailor your expectations. Don't expect her to now be able to play something amazing. Just let her play and let her associate music learning with play and pleasure, because she will stick with it for longer.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Tosin, I think this also addresses your question about how long we should dedicate in terms of the learning for music. So the other question we have here is, must it be formal? Must the learning be formal? Must music lessons be formal? Example, piano lessons, guitar lessons. And then what of parents who can't afford to pay for such? Are there informal alternatives?
Okay, so it has to be structured. Okay, it has to be structured. Structured music learning gives you the most benefits. Remember, we talked about all the multisensory part of things. Okay, so it has to have the reading element. It has to include training of their oral skills, of their ears, and obviously skill on the instrument. Those 3 things is what is going to give your child the highest benefit. However, when your child is a baby, the highest benefit comes from just singing and moving rhythmically to music. Then your baby bounce them up and down singing. So it depends on the age of the child. Now, yes, it can be expensive. And part of my mission in life is to try and make music learning, try to democratize music learning, which is why we are providing these digital resources that you can access at home, or you can give somebody. Some of you have tutors that work with your children. They don't have to be music specialists to be able to access that. And that is going to bring down the cost for you. Yeah. Or
Right.
sign your child up for a group class, which is not as expensive as a private class.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. And I think Asha Resource Center, your question about age group and what age kids can get started, I think that was addressed in the presentation, which I think we should be able to send across to every participant after today's event. So look forward to that, and then you can revise the presentations to get more details about age groups and all of that. The last question that I have here is the debate. It's an underlying debate about the kind of music to expose children to. Classical music versus our regular Nigerian Afrobeat music. Is music music? Is there a difference in the genre of the music that we expose our kids to? And is there an advantage to the benefits that each one gives the child?
Can I tell you what classical music is? Classical music, typically, a lot of classical music, not all of it, is based on folk tunes. It's based on the Batamiadu go go ka. It's what people were singing in their day and time that they took time to write down. Okay, so music, as long as it is your music, folk music is just as legitimate as any other music. Okay, classical music is called classical music because of the era, the time in history that music came into being. I wouldn't say it's necessarily superior. In fact, I think African music is a lot more complicated and therefore a richer, much richer type of music, music genre than just your Western classical music. And every culture has its own. The Indians have their own, the Chinese have their own. I will not dumb down our traditional music. What I have issue is exposing a child to sexually explicit music, lyrics, especially at a young age. I think you're doing your child a disservice. I think you are eroding their moral compass, okay, by exposing them to that kind of thing. So you have to think about think of the diet of what you're giving them. You understand me? Think of the diet of what you're giving them and make sure it is appropriate for your child. Because at the end of the day, you are sowing seeds. I remember the first thing that develops in life is your sense of hearing. It's the first thing. Right. Whatever you're sowing in there, you're going to reap.
Thank you again. Okay, so thank you. I like how you still go back to that same principle about what you sow is what you reap. I think that cuts across every aspect of our lives, even as parents and just as adults living our day-to-day lives. So again, thank you so much. Someone had actually expressed interest in receiving the free resource that you have. So I'm hoping that that's something you can send to Tommy, and we'll collate that and share to those who will be interested.
No problem.
Including your contacts and how to get more resources that Kunbi Music offers. Once again, thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you. I believe a lot of people will reach out to you. So many people will be reaching out to you after today. I, for one, will be coming to reach out to you after today because you've just made me understand how very important it is to start really early, just so that I don't suddenly expect my son to be a maestro on the keys when I've not exposed him from start. So thank you so much for helping us to manage our expectations around it. Thank you again. We look forward to having you another time when we call on you.
It's a pleasure. And can I just say one more thing? There's I actually have a community for parents. It's called Music Moms and Dads. And I share all kinds of, the research, interviews with all kinds of music educators from around the world and things like that. So I will include information on joining that community in the pack that I send out as well.
Great. Okay. Great. Thank you again. Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye, ma'am.
Everybody, bye.
Thank you. Whew, wow. So everyone, thank you. Kicked off with our first speaker. We have 3 more to go. And if this is just what we are expecting, trust me, you are in for a treat. So we actually have, 3 more to go. And one thing I'd like to note here with regards to exposing your kids to music, I was having a chat with Tommy earlier. Tommy, our mommy G.O., aka convener of the Homeschooling